everyone, it's Laurie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you all my breastfeeding and pumping favorites and essentials. So I'll share with you everything that I have in my pumping kit and my breastfeeding stuff, and also how I store in the fridge and the freezer my pumped milk as well. So I hope you enjoy the video. Alright, so the first thing are some nursing pads. I use reusable nursing pads. And you don't need that many if you're going to do the laundry quite often. I think I have like 4 sets maybe. And they're very useful because especially at the very beginning, you do tend to leak a little bit. So yeah, definitely a good investment. Another essential is some heating pads or heating packs. Those are DIYs that I've made before giving birth. You can either use those or you can use booby tubes. Booby tubes are kind of like circular like this, although they're quite expensive for no reason. Like these can be made for virtually nothing. And I like the shape of those better. But basically socks and rice, and you can like put them like this on you, like to help relieve engorgement and stuff like that at the beginning. I also use them when I would go outside because whenever I would go outside in the cold and it would be very, very cold, my nipples would hurt a lot. So I would use those to keep my breasts warm. But yeah, very, very, very useful. And along with that, nipple butter. And now I did not need this that often, and what's nice with this nipple butter is actually that it's kind of an all-purpose balm. You can use it for everything. I DIY'd it in the same video, so you can see how to make it. But a little bit of nipple balm will be very useful. Every once in a while, if you have cracked nipples, a little goes a long way. You really don't need that much. I've used this for my nipples like a handful of time, and most of the time I use it to moisturize my baby, and I still have so much. Next is something that you'll see pretty much everyone recommend, and it's the Haakaa. It's a silicone pump, so what you can do is you just flip it like this and you squeeze it, you put your nipple in it, and then you let it kind of bounce back, and it will create a mild suction that will catch your lead down so you don't waste it in your nipple pads. And it helps you build a stash passively, so you don't have to pump, but you can still build quite a nice stash with a Haakaa as well. And lastly, this one is definitely not an essential, but just like something that you might want to consider. It's called breast shells. And I would use those in place of the Haakaa whenever I'm out and about, because you can't exactly do this very subtly, you know. But this one, you can tuck your nipple inside. Make sure to like leave the little hole at the top, not at the bottom, so it doesn't drain all over your shirt. But you can tuck it into your bra really easily, and that way it will catch your lead down more without a suction, so not as much will come out, but you'll still catch a little bit of your lead down potentially with this if you're out and about. Next is some vitamin D drops. This is actually a probiotic with vitamin D, but technically you only need the vitamin D. When you're breastfeeding, your baby doesn't get vitamin D, so it's recommended by any pediatrician probably that you supplement them with some vitamin D drops. Like I said, this one is one that's with probiotics, but they also make other ones that are just vitamin D as well. And finally, this one is also optional, and it's a nursing cover. So if you plan on being out and about and you don't feel comfortable breastfeeding in public without any coverage, you can use a nursing cover as well. So just thought I would put it out there. And now moving on to kind of pumping essentials. The first one is a pump. So I've actually made a video kind of pumping 101 on my second channel, which is more like of a educational channel, Plentiful Mama. So I will link it down below. But here's the pump that I do use. So I use the Spectra S1 pump. And the only difference between the S1 and the S2 is that the S1 has a battery, so you don't have to have it plugged to use it, and the S2 you do need to plug. I believe that's the only difference. So that's a electric pump. But then you can also use a manual pump, and I especially like this one by Lancino because it has a let down mode. And I don't know if any other brand has that. I did try another like kind of no name brand unknown brand one, and it wasn't this nice at all, and it didn't really work that well, so I had to return it. This one I like because it has this soft edge here, so it doesn't dig quite as much into your boob, and again it has the let down mode, so you just push it forward and you let it go to the first level, and that one kind of has like a faster it has like less of a suction, so you can go faster to get your let down going, and once your milk starts coming, you can move it down to the regular pumping mode and you get a lot more suction that way. And same with the electric pump. I do like that this one has a let down mode right up here, and you can control like the cycle and the vacuum, the suction, and it does have also like a little flashlight. Now an electric pump isn't necessarily necessary if you plan on just building a stash passively. I would just go with a Haakaa and a manual pump, and that should do it, honestly. The electric pump is only if you're more serious about pumping, like if you're going to go back to work really early and you're going to have to pump quite a bit, and you're kind of crunched on time maybe, or like in my situation when Kainoa was in the NICU and I did have to exclusively pump for a couple weeks. It was really useful because doing one boob at a time with this would be kind of annoying. Although one thing I would suggest is if you are hand pumping, put the Haakaa on the other side so it catches some of it. I don't know if that makes that much of a difference, but that's what I do when I do use this sometimes, and I feel like it goes faster. But yeah, the electric pump is more for a more serious pumping game if you have a big stash to build. And if you use an electric pump and you're going to pump quite a bit, I do recommend a pumping bra. So it's black, so it may be hard for you to see, but it basically opens up like this and it will hold like this, so you don't have to hold it. So again, this wouldn't be necessary unless you're pumping quite a bit. When I was exclusively pumping like every 3 hours for like the first couple of weeks, it was really useful as opposed to trying to hold the things, because either I would have to like spend my time holding both or doing only one boob at a time and have one hand free. It was just not ideal because I had to do that for a couple of days until this came into the mail. So I recommend that. And if you're going to be pumping, you're going to need bottles to feed your baby. The ones I do recommend are the Komotomo bottles. They're the only ones I've tried, so like I'm sure there's other really good brands out there, but I do like those little silicone ones that are kind of boob shaped. They're really easy to latch. I know a lot of people really like them. They're on the pricier side, but I did find mine new on Facebook Marketplace, so they've never been used, but they were still secondhand. And for breastfeeding, I would also recommend maybe trying a nursing bra. I do have a few that are like this one here, where like you can unclip and detach completely, let this down, and so like you still have the strap on, but this all comes all the way down. But I don't like them as much as these like kind of crisscross ones. So I like these ones, and you kind of wear it like this and then you just pull it down. So I just prefer those ones, but especially for at night, but you can try both and see what works best for you and your outfits. Now for storing breast milk, I know most people do recommend some storage bags like this, and they might be what's most useful for you. I started out with this, but I did not like it all that much. Plus I know that with plastic bags sometimes you lose a little bit of the fat content of the milk when you defrost it because it gets stuck. So yeah, you have the option for this. But what I like to do when I store it in the fridge is use these little mason jars. So I use this mason jar, and what I do is I use a little dry erase marker, and I just write the date on the top lid, and sometimes I write it also on the side, just so it's easier to see because it's at the top of the fridge and I can't see the lids because I'm short. But yeah, just writing the date with a dry erase marker. You can wash those real good and you can reuse them as often as you want. But otherwise, if you're going to use milk bags, then just a Sharpie to write the date, the time, the volume, that kind of stuff, to keep track, because you want to use the oldest ones first. And what I do actually for freezing milk, because again I'm not a huge fan of these bags, is a little bit more of a low waste option, is I use little silicone trays. You could use like ice cube makers, but I use the silicone trays that are typically used for baby food. So they're 2.5 ounces each, I believe. And so I freeze my milk in there, and once it's frozen, I pop it out and I transfer it into a Ziploc bag that I'll be reusing. And I just put the date, usually I put a whole week's worth in one Ziploc bag and toss that in the deep freezer for future use. And finally, a non-essential but definitely something that I do enjoy is this tiny little fridge that's really quite affordable. It actually plugs into your car as well, but we use it here upstairs because when I pump at night, I don't pump. So at night when I breastfeed and I use the Haakaa, I always get like at least a couple ounces every feed. And so what I do is I transfer it into a jar, and I put the jar into this little fridge right here that's upstairs, so I don't have to go downstairs a couple times a night to like store my milk, because you can't exactly leave it at room temperature for that long. So yeah, I just have this little fridge that's very miniature and compact that I can store my milk in at night, and then in the morning I just grab it and bring it down to the main fridge downstairs. And you can also use this for like beauty supplies that need to be refrigerated as well, apparently. And I obviously haven't gone on a road trip or anything yet, and I don't know that I ever will need it, but it does plug in the car. So if I wanted to take it and have a tiny little fridge in the car, it does have a shelf. I took it out, but it does have a shelf that you can put here. Then that might be an option, we'll see. And then a couple more things that are really useful when breastfeeding are having some water nearby, as well as snacks and hand sanitizer. And another thing that's kind of optional, but something that was really useful for us at the beginning when we were trying to figure out breastfeeding and trying to get Kainoa to latch, is to use a little syringe. You can use a big one like this, or we had like a smaller one, or we had like a much smaller one as well. And I would use a little bit of my pumped milk from the previous pumping session, and what I would do is I would just squirt it on my nipple, so my nipple would taste like milk even though it hadn't started releasing milk, if that makes sense. Obviously now he latches perfectly fine, so he doesn't need this little boost, but it was really useful at the very beginning to get him to recognize my nipple as like a source of food. Alright, so I believe that concludes kind of my breastfeeding essentials and pumping essentials. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and let me know if there's anything that I missed, like any essentials that you have for pumping and or breastfeeding, in the comments below for everyone to see. Thanks for watching. I love you all very much, and I will see you all with more videos very soon. Bye!